We're going to talk about testing. Testing in DevOps era. That's just our theme. So I'm Ipsito Banerjee, and I head the Quality Engineering and Assurance Group for AIG's Retirement Services. So AIG is a huge company, right? It's like we have a lot of business units, we have a lot of our products, we cater to auto and home and life insurance and individual annuities. Our business unit where I am working on, or we both work on, we are providing retirement services to the non-profit. We serve those who serve, like our K through 12 teachers, the higher eds, the hospitals and the government organizations and charities. So how do we do testing has evolved, right? We have some very tenured testers and a lot of manual black box eyeballing, right? That has gone on for years. Now, when DevOps came and Agile came, all that had to change, right? We do no longer have these 3-month-long testing window, right? So how things have changed, that's a challenge. So we're going to speak about that. And Biswajit?
Yeah, my name is Biswajit. If you want me to call a little shorter, Biswa is okay. And I work as a automation architect for Ipsito's department, and I do the how part, what Ipsito asked me to do. That's pretty much I do, and Ipsito can go for that.
Okay, so as the agenda states, that we will go over a little bit of the trends and how and why we are doing the change, and then we'll run through some technical stuff as well on a case study. All right. So we will start off with taking a poll. Okay, so take out your cell phones. We'll take a live poll, and the first question is. So this is how you're going to respond. So we'll see the results live on the screen. So you have to text. First, you have to text BIS.
So number to text is 22333.
That's the number you will text to, but you have to first.
The content would be.
The content will be Biswajit Das
and 779. So that's my passcode. Okay, so
that's how you register. Yeah, and then text and messaging.
Oh, someone already texted. Okay.
All right.
So are you aware of
any question? Any problems anybody is facing to respond, or just raise your hand? We can. Yes, it takes time to write his name. That is correct.
And that's what you get when you get something free.
All right. You read the first question, right? We in my team, like business, developers, and testers contribute and complement each other's work. We're trying to get there, but how many of us are there already? Yes, we are a T-shaped agile team. How many of you know already about what this T-shaped team is, right? So we're trying to go there. This full stack, this T-shaped, like. Earlier, we had this very specialized skills. I'm a tester, I can only test. Or I'm a developer, I only develop. Right now, we are breaking those barriers, right? We are collaborating. I am a tester, but I can, I can do the documentation of your microservices, right? Or I'm a developer, I have some free time, and I can execute those tests, right? So those borders are now mingling, right? It's fading away. So we are saying that, yes, we will have this vertical niche expertise, domain expertise in one area, but we spread out horizontally as well. So that's the T-shaped. And we can also have
so if you really want to kind of understand, so everyone plays in the roles in the delivery team, has their own expertise, and have certain level of understanding for what others are also working. Being a business analyst might have some understanding about what a tester or a developer does, and vice versa. And these roles are maybe different for your organization, but you can basically put it in the same form like what a T-shaped team would be. So you can still vote for it, but we can get a sense of it where we are, and as we are moving towards the adoption of T-shaped team in an agile or DevOps delivery environment. So which is a good representation, and we feel like, yeah, we realize it, and we are on that right direction. So that's a good thing. So our next question is, in my organization, we consider testability in dev and embrace shift left or shift right. So shift left is how early, how often, how soon we can test, rather than waiting at the end of the sprint or waiting at the end of the delivery stage. Whereas when we keep doing that, it might not be at a certain point, it might not be enough. How can we get early feedback from the production itself? How my user is accepting, what is my availability, what is the reliability, what is the performance of our applications when it is live, and how can I capture the feedback from the application to take preventive measures so that we figure out the bottleneck and solve it before it finds by our customers or the end users.
Yeah, we're quite close, right? So all three have 40, 32, 28%, which means that yes, for the most part, we are there. We are practicing agility. We are trying to shift left, or we are already shifting left. But there is a lot of organizations that we are still trying, right? And we're not there yet. So the next question, in my organization, continuous testing starts with a Git commit. Let's see how many are there. So the option A is yes, that's expected 100% of the time. I am glad that we are there. We are on track, not there yet. That's another option. We don't practice now, however, feel like the need to take the first step really soon. And we don't feel this would add any value, with a Git commit, testing, So we were really passionate about this, right? So with every Git commit, can we start continuous testing? We all know theoretically we can do that, but are we doing it, right? And we are not a tech company, right? We are an insurance company with a big IT organization, but we try to do that. Again, it's in pockets, and so we're very passionate about trying to make that a, right?
Yes, I think this result represents very, very progressive and motivative environment that we all are looking forward to make our community better.
The next question is, in my organization, changes roll back when any test, unit, integration, smoke, performance fails. So do we do an automatic rollback on automated tests? When those tests fail, do we do a rollback? So that's, again, more futuristic, right? We're trying to get there. If a test fails, we will be rolling back the code. But again, that's the theory. In theory, we should be doing that, but are we doing it? Okay. So we don't integrate testing in DevOps pipelines. So a lot of, 1/3 of us are not yet integrated with the testing, with the DevOps pipeline, right? So that's a big challenge, and that's why we're here to give this talk, right? That how we can integrate, how we can shift left, right? Not just the theoretical ideas of DevOps and just not the CI/CD, but how about CT, the continuous testing, and what we can do to integrate that in the DevOps pipeline. Sometimes we ignore the failure. That was the majority of people voted there, right? So we are probably hooked up, but if a test fails, we do nothing. Probably we'll take it later on. We'll investigate and find out what we should be doing, but we are not rolling back the code because the test failed. We are not that unforgiving yet, right, with our delivery. So this is just like a 60 seconds. We got this from what would it be forum, and the 60-second, like this is in 1 minute, this is what happens. Like if you talk about Facebook, 1 million people logs in, right? If you talk about YouTube, 4.5 million videos are viewed. If you talk about Netflix, 694,444 hours are watched in just 60 seconds, right? So this is important because this is the scale, right? And we heard Donovan yesterday, how many deployments are made in a day, right?
Yeah, it was 1,065 or like 165,000 a day.
Right. So in order to achieve that, right, we really have to think about how we can test, right? Again, we are not those FANGs, right? We are not the Facebooks and the Amazons, but other companies we probably don't deploy. We were talking in one of our open spaces yesterday afternoon that we don't deploy 1,000 deployments a day, right? We will be happy if we can get maybe one in a day. But even to do that, how can we make testing, how can we integrate testing in the pipeline, the continuous testing, so that allows us, right, to do this without somebody manually being the bottleneck or manually having to give the go-ahead in terms of quality. Consumer grade experience. This is important. We are no longer, we are no longer just measured against our domain, your industry. We are actually, our experiences, like what we offer to our customers expect all of our apps, right, whether it's mobile native or whether it's on a website, they want to have the same experience that they have with, let's say, Amazon or with Walmart online or something like that. So us being AIG or a Vanguard or a Charles Schwab or a Fidelity, we are retirement, but they want that experience from us. So we are not just compared against our peers in the same domain. Our benchmark has just gotten very high, right? Our expectations from our customers are that we achieve that level of service, right? That instantaneous. If I want a loan against my 401k, I don't really want to do through all those calls and those high touch. I call somebody, they fax me some form, well, not fax, email me some form, and then I have to fill that up, sign it in triplicate, and submit it. We don't want all that, right? I really want that Amazon type experience. Like, it's a loan, it's a prime, right? In 2 days, you'll get your loan deposited in your bank account. So that's the kind of expectations our customers now have. That's the consumer grade experience they want from us. So that's a quote. We all want to move fast and break things. Unless you are breaking stuff, you're not moving fast enough. So we heard about it, right? This whole dev leaning towards the DevOps, right? The greed to push more, greed to deploy more things. And it's okay to break things, because if you're not breaking things, we're sticking to the status quo, and nobody improved by sticking to the status quo. So we want to do that. However, we're breaking, but who's mending? So somebody has to mend. So if things get broken, who gets the responsibility of mending those things or fixing those breakages?
Certainly not my boss is fixing.
Oh, I do. So I'm a Harry Potter fan, so I convinced Dobby, saying that, so our house elves are currently on strike. You will have to clean up your own mess until further notice. And I think that is the spirit of DevOps, right? Or if you do the scale, it's like, you have built it, you have executed it, you support it, you run it, right? So there's nobody else who will have to pick up after clean after your mess. So, Biswajit, you want to speak about it?
Yeah, sure. So we want to go in a reasonable speed, not failure, but not delivering anything. So, and again, we might not have that infrastructure, not that talent, not that process that we can tolerate that failures, the first nays that this DevOps days or the continuous delivery model wants. But we certainly can try that with a different mindset, with our existing infrastructure, with existing people, process, and technology.
Yes, those are the three I think, things that we heard yesterday as well, right? We have the people, the process, and the products or the tools and technology, right? We often forget that we have all those tool sets in the chain, and this is what we will try to cover in our later. Can we go back to the previous slide? So we often have the technology. We know this is a great tool, we can do this, but we forget about the people and process, right? So we have, as I said, we often see, especially in testing, right? We often see a lot of tenured testers who have a lot of institutional knowledge, who have a lot of domain expertise, right? They've been around for 30 years in the company, so they really know what our business rules are. Okay, that we can't allow this, right? They have a lot of that in their heads. Now we tell them, okay, now you're going to write automated tests in Python from tomorrow and hook it up with the Jenkins pipeline, and they're saying, whoa, and all they were doing is manual testing, right? So we often forget about that people part. We know how to write, some developers will know how to write Python scripts, but adoption is key, right? We have to make sure that the automated testing is adopted. And how we adopt, we have to do career roadshows, we have to probably do a lot of training and upskilling of people, right? They know the business logic, but how can we make that happen, that training, that upskilling? That is important. We often ignore or overlook or just gloss over that piece. The three amigos. So I hope all of you know about this three amigos concept in the agile world, especially, right? Who are the three amigos? Can anybody? In the agile world or in the? Yes.
Product owner, tester, and developer.
Yes, product owner, tester, and developer, right? So the whole amigo, like they buddy up. It's no, in the waterfall world, it was like us versus them. We are in IT. Business gave some requirements, it's coded, they're in a BRD, and then we'll develop some tech specs. We will code for 3 months, test for 2 months or 1 month, and then what they see is only in UAT, right? So that has stopped, right? We will be we will be collaborating together. Developers, testers, and the product owner or the business stakeholders, they will all be collaborating. So developing test scenarios is not only the burden of the tester, because the tester might not know, and 3 brains is definitely better than 1, right? So this whole concept of collaboration, happens with what? With behavior-driven development or test-driven development, or how we call acceptance test-driven development, BDD, ATDD, TDD. I mean, those are all those concepts, right? We, stresses upon this and how we can achieve that. We'll talk about how we can achieve that. So we'll actually focus on how. We'll not just talk theoretically.
So traditionally we have been focusing on like a UI and concentrating on making automation at the UI level, which is most of the time it is flaky, hard to maintain, and it is more prone to change. So. But as a process improvement, we try to do from a testing cone to a test pyramid, where making the UI test as the least priority item just to make sure how it works at the end. However, not waiting at the end to test everything, rather moving towards the left as doing more testing more often at the unit test layer and the API layer or the database layer, just to ensure the core business logic is being validated and it's been done well enough.
Yes. So I would like to spend 1 minute on this slide, right? So traditionally, we do it the other way. We invert the pyramid, well, not the unit test part, but if you think of an ice cream cone, they often say that this currently the testing model is like an ice cream cone. We have a little bit of unit tests at the bottom of the cone. Then you have a little bit of, let's say, some sort of component testing or integration testing. You might have a little bit of automated UI tests, right, through Selenium or UFT. we do that, but then there's a whole lot of manual testing. So that's your ice cream cone, right? You get that. But we want to invert that, right? We want to invert that ice cream cone into this pyramid where we want to actually stress upon the unit tests. How can we can do code coverage, again, Sonar Cube, and through those we have to, we want to push the code coverage to 85%, 90%, and so on. And then if you look at Agile, and if you look at a vertical sliced sprint where you have the data layer, we have the APIs or the microservices and the microsite all in one sprint. Typically what happens is the data comes first, and they'll have a data contract. The API developers will take that contract, shake hands, and then develop their APIs, and then they will provide a service contract which will be given to the UI people, right? And the UI people will be working on development of the UI, right? Of course, there will be other people like a customer experience, or the XD team, the experience design team, and architecture and others. But what happens typically is, traditionally, testers wait until the UI is built, then they will test the UI, or they will write automated tests on the UI. We want to push towards the left, or shift left, and start on the API layer, because that's where all the business logic is. If you're done testing the API layer, all you're doing in the UI while the UI is being built, or after the UI is developed, is just do some exploratory testing to make sure first that the UI and the API is wired up correctly, or that the UI formatting and the aesthetics and the cosmetics are correct, right? But the core business layer, which causes real showstopper defects, right? Those capabilities are already tested. And for that, you don't need the UI to be ready. You can do your testing before even the UI is built, right? So that's a huge gain for us in terms of shrinking the timelines and expediting the code to the market, right? So that's where the API testing comes, and we will talk about API testing and how to automate that, right? So we are just not going to talk about Postman. I think we all know about Postman. But we are talking about automating some of those API tests. And how can we do, and we have all these tools, so we're not going to spend time on this slide. We know that we have all these tools, but our focus of this talk is how can we test those microservices earlier, even before the UI is getting built, and how can we automate that and hook it up with the pipeline, so when the pipeline runs, it deploys, it builds the code, it deploys, and then it runs through the unit tests, and it also runs those API automated tests. And because they are so stable, like UI tests are brittle, right? They are flaky, they're brittle, they're hard to maintain. Something shifts, oh God, the script is broken, now we have to maintain it. But APIs are relatively stable, right? And especially when you have those key and value, you know what the response is, you know what the request is, what the method is, what the endpoint is, the resources, the response, and those are stable. Those don't change, unlike the UI. So we'll talk about that.
So, well, as microservice architecture has been adopted, and so they basically changed the way we work together, and that's been well established in the development area. However, there has been a lack on testing side, or quality engineering area, where how we adopted testing early at the microservice level. And again, the World Quality Report last year has just started reporting the numbers, what is the number of test automation in API layer. That is like way below, around 14%. So when we see that trends, well, microservices has been in the industry for quite some time, but still why the adoption rate in test automation for APIs are so below, even it is being reported by the world leading testing reports as just for the first time. So that makes it thinks about why it is not adopted so well. And my exposure to the API is probably close to 4 to 5 years now, and I have been as a tester for the whole time, and my experiences, or like what I experienced, or what I learned from it, is that APIs to a tester is too technical. Probably I cannot handle that. To a developer, might be, probably tester doesn't need to know it. It's under the hood. To business, oh, there is no UI. I can't see anything. Probably I'm not at all interested. However, we are making that business logic and the API or the critical layer, or rather a potential area where we can contribute more, like behind the limelight. So how we can make it better? So why is that small adoption rate? What is that? Is there a better way? Is there a simple way we can do? We can target. We can adopt. How we can make it better, or make it simple rather? How can make it?
One framework that we have found helpful. Again, there are many other frameworks. We all know about Postman. We all know about SOAP, UI. We know Rest Assured. This is one framework. We can slide because let's keep the time. So Karate DSL is a framework that we liked because it actually helps with that BDD concept of the collaboration with the product owner and the tester and the developer. So these are
it is not that hard though.
Yeah. So this is Peter Thomas who created this framework, and again, it's open source. It's free for everybody to use. And this uses the BDD, the Gherkin syntax. So how many of you are aware of the Gherkin, right? It's, again, a structured English. That's great. It's not very great, I think. I saw only one hand. Did I see only one hand? So Gherkin, again, is just English. It's structured English. Like how you write your tests, you write like, given this, when I do that, then I expect to get this, right? So that's just a way you write most of your test cases, right? You have, a background or a context, and then what you do, you poke or tickle or, and then you get the expected results. So that's your Gherkin. Because it's structured English, it becomes very easy for everybody, including our business partners, our product owners, to collaborate with us to write those scenarios. And for API, again, as I said, most of our business logic resides within the API, not within the UI layer, right? So once we collaborate with them, we sit together as a developer, as a tester, and a product owner, and write out the scenarios. So if this API, let's say, is doing it's a transaction. We're trying to get some, checking account to savings account transfer, right? This is our scenario. So the API will be doing that, right? And then if we can write these scenarios in English, our product owner can also help us. So again, you see, there is only 11 keywords in Gherkin. Given, something, when, then, and, but. Nobody uses but, so even forget about that. Star, which is like a wildcard. Background, feature, which is like the feature file. We call this file as a feature file. So it's very easy to learn, right? And Karate has some keywords of its own, but it will be extremely easy and very collaborative for writing tests, API tests that will actually test all of your business logic.
So if you compare to any other leading frameworks or technology available, so if I use the BDD concept and I want to use REST Assured or something else, you need to write the scenario, you need to use the step definition, you need to use the business logic and any other methods that would be needed. However, in Karate, this is just it. So it's this piece only. It takes care of every, no glue, nothing, no additional code, pure English, like anyone can use it, anyone can write it. So that makes it so simple that we can overcome the barrier of too technical, and anyone can try to use it. These are a couple of features. They have a nice assertion library where we can we can validate the structure, we can validate the data, and there are so many different ways we can include the assertions. And again, another good design pattern, do not repeat yourself. We do practice in development. We can use that in our in test automation development as well. We can call another feature file already created, part of another scenario, and we can get going. In testing, there are a lot of need of dynamic data, test data. So we can create our script. We can point to an Excel file or JSON file or CSV file, which can repeat all the scenarios as we need. again, schema validation for APIs is a great part. I might have a conditional formatting for whether I have a secondary home address, then only my home address will come. Otherwise, it will not come. So we can make all that conditional schema validation. It has by default. And again, we can also do a custom validation where I can use different questions and I can validate everything. It can talk to JavaScript or Java. It can basically do a parallel processing where I have n number of script. I can just split it into different process, and it can go way faster than UI. And when it is done right, we can integrate it to the pipeline. It can.
So if you see in the top, like we have what is that? The Mantis? No.
Yes.
If you go
and
back,
there are other things also we can do is like a performance testing. You use the same script. You do not need to write a JMeter or anything else. It has a great integration with Gherkin. Another reporting cool stuffs are there. But you can go check out the GitHub repository. It's an open source project by Intuit. And certainly it's not that popular, 2 years old only, but we found it very interesting.
It's gaining a lot of traction though, and we really find it helpful. That's
Yeah.
all we have for today. Thank you.